Hello and welcome to Leviathan News. Today is May 10th, 2023. And the big story of the day is Aragon DAO. Actually a DAO or not a DAO, guys?
It's the question, isn't it?
It is the question. So Aragon DAO came out with this big post yesterday claiming that they were under a 51% attack.
Yeah, I love that.
By what they called risk-free value raiders, who are quote unquote the vultures of crypto, a sophisticated, well-resourced, and coordinated group of actors that target crypto projects with an imbalance between the value of their token and treasury. Most notably, Avram Eisenberg, who was involved with the Mango DAO exploit as a part of this group, potentially.
Wait, so this is legitimately not a joke? I thought he was in jail.
I thought he was in jail too.
Okay.
But he's listed in here. He's listed.
Okay.
Yeah. So because they say it's worth noting that one of these members, so maybe it's a bunch of people, but okay. So here's how it works. Risk-free value essentially says that if you have a huge treasury, let's just say $100 million worth of treasury, and there's a token that governs the DAO. If the value of the token is less than the treasury, then there's some like what they call risk-free value, where you could buy enough of the token to get a vote passed to distribute the treasury to token holders. And this has been done in the past with you could argue this is done with Rook DAO, but that's a different situation. They talk about Rook DAO in their post, but there's been several other DAOs who have suffered this fate of having too big of a treasury and no use case and no roadmap, and people just buy the token and then dissolve the DAO and collect the money.
Yeah, I think, okay, so before we talk specifically about like the steps that Aragon took and like why that's just like pretty outrageous, like let's just talk about this like risk-free raider concept. Like, so first of all, this is like not a new concept. Our industry didn't invent this. This is like generically what private equity does in the real world, right? So like number one, 51% attack to like describe hostile takeovers is like very funny to me. Number two, like in Aragon's tweet, it's a little unclear, but first of all, I think that these RFV raiders is not like a real coordinated group. I think that's a name that Aragon has decided. And it also just like, if you look at the other examples that they cite, Rook, Fei, like all of these were like incredibly controversial things. Like the best example is Fei, right? Where there wasn't anything about risk-free raiders there. There was like a massive industry-changing hack during the Luna meltdown. And then like with all these like governance votes and this and this, and it's just like, again, well, I'll let anybody else respond to that, and then we can talk about how dumb Aragon's move is. But it's just like on its face, it is like, this is just like prima facie, like we're just gonna like look for examples of like horrible things that have happened, invoke them, and then just do whatever we want.
Yeah, I mean, it's a symptom of, honestly, it's a symptom of having too much money. Yeah, too much money and not enough business use case to be able to spend that money in a valuable way. You know, you see this all the time in regular finance or, you know, regular business, where if a floundering business is sitting on a large amount of cash, it makes them a really prime target, because a private equity firm can just load up on debt, acquire the company, use the cash to then pay back their debt and you know, restructure at that point, and they make a ton of money. And it's the same in this case, where Aragon has a purpose, right? So Aragon is a DAO that provides software to other DAOs so that they can manage their DAOs. It's a Swiss-based company, or sorry, Swiss-based, how do I describe this?
No, I think you could say company now.
Yeah, I believe, sure. So it's Aragon is a Swiss-based company that provides technology services to other DAOs. They have this token called the Aragon Network Token, which was supposed to provide utility for their technology services that they're providing.
And so, governance, probably.
Yeah, and governance as well too. And what Aragon is claiming, or hold on, before we get there. So Aragon raised $25 million worth of ETH back in 2017. At these current prices, that is around $200 million. It's a very sizable sum of ETH. It's nothing to joke about. They say that it was the 4th largest crowdfunding event in history at the time of the sale. So they have a lot of ETH.
And it's actually even better than that because it's worth 200 million today, like the actual treasury, not the original ETH, but like after spending, after operations, after everything today, the amount that these RFV raiders are going after is like in the 9 figures.
Exactly. So it's a worthy prize. And the model for this is to collect enough of the token to pass a vote to distribute the treasury and then wind down the DAO. So if the DAO is actually not providing enough value and services for the wider community, it should be easy to acquire those tokens. And so a group of people who have been going out, Aragon specifically calls out Arca Capital Management as one of the parties who are trying to conduct this, quote, 51% attack, have been going out and trying to buy up enough ANT tokens because it's under the ANT tokens are under the value of the treasury, to buy enough ANT tokens to be able to dissolve the DAO. And so what Aragon did yesterday is that they announced that they're essentially neutering the ability of ANT token holders to influence the structure of the Swiss entity that they have that runs the Aragon treasury. So they're essentially cutting it off and saying that this $200 million that we have a fiduciary responsibility, is what they're saying, to continue the project of Aragon, and the DAO you can just get bent. Goodbye.
I mean, as always, I have thoughts, but Garrett or Deep Advisor, anything?
I think that's it. I think it basically shows the not very subtle border between wanting to be a DAO, wanting to get like the benefits of a DAO community and attracting the value that you can extracting. I'm sorry. And then all of a sudden, when it doesn't really fit the narrative of the people in charge, they kind of remember, oh, you know what, we kind of actually want to be a company, so let's just do something that's going to silence all these guys over there and do whatever we want. And again, it shows a lot of all this kind of stuff that we still have in the industry, and I think we're going to have them for years to come. It's not going to be easy.
Yeah, I sort of feel like it's like shows the dangers of decentralizing yourself too quick, which is that if you don't have your governance shorn up, you're susceptible to these attacks. Like if you're super centralized, if you're a dictatorship, right, you can't get attacked.
Yeah, I also think that like we really need to like grapple with like this framing as an attack. Like if a DAO is real and token holders want to dissolve it, that's not an attack. That's like owners deciding to do something with things that they own. Otherwise, it's just not a DAO, you know?
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
So,
and also they are allowed to buy from the market if people want to buy a token in order to have governance rights and use them, because it's not a token that you have to lock in advance in order to participate in governance and whatever. So you can't come retroactively and say, oh no, it's not going the way I want to. Let's play again.
Okay, so just to go back and give some more facts about what's happening here. And thank you, DCF God, for doing some great investigative journalism and rounding up a bunch of these facts. And I'm going off what he says. And this is a great post where he's talking about the facts of how these assets were supposedly transferred. So back in November 2022, the DAO and supposedly the Aragon project company who did the ICO raise at the time voted to transfer 100% of the treasury assets into the DAO. And then that would leave the team to have 3 months of runway after November 2022. So now it's May 2023, and DCF God said that the team should have no runway and that the DAO should control all the assets. And yet here we are, where the company or the project or whatever you want to call it, the centralized project, is making unilateral changes to the DAO without a vote. And they're saying that they have a fiduciary responsibility, which to whom, right? Typically when you have a fiduciary responsibility, it's to your shareholders or your token holders, right? It's not to your employees.
Yeah. So let me address that. Like, let's just take them on good faith for one moment. And like, essentially what they're saying is that they were, incorporated or instantiated in Switzerland as a foundation. And as part of like the Swiss law, what it says is that like, if you raise money for this thing, it has to support like what the foundation is doing. Otherwise it's a securities offering. And so what Aragon is saying is that like, based on the laws of Switzerland, we have a fiduciary responsibility. And I think like none of us really take that in good faith. But I do think that like it does like give us a peek around the corner and behind the curtain to show us like what's coming and like when like real world laws like really, really conflict with what's going on chain. This is like not the greatest like news for those of us who care what's going on chain. Like everyone just completely folded to Swiss law if you take what happened on good faith.
Yeah. Which I don't. I mean, I don't take anything in crypto in good faith.
Pepe?
No, nothing. It's totally PvP. Everybody's out. Look, there's $200 million worth of assets here that are paying probably some really high salaries for whomever's working at Aragon.
Mm-hmm.
And this disillusion event would just completely wreck all of those people that are working there. They have every incentive to go out and ensure that the Aragon project is fully backed until the end of time so they can have their salaries forever, right? I don't know. This is just a mess, honestly.
Yeah, the real mess is just in. I mean, it actually, we'll use this as a little bit of a segue, but it like reminds me a little bit of the Arbitrum situation, where it's like, look, like if we want to talk about what's like right for the project and right for like the longevity of this thing, like that's one thing. But if we want to talk about decentralized governance, that's another. And then like they seem kind of parallel and congruent until these moments where it's just like pretty explosive, like where it feels like Aragon is rugging the DAO, or it feels like Arbitrum is, like making this like token distribution proposal and like doing it after the fact or whatever. And it just goes to show that like, as much as we feel like DAOs, it's been like 3 years of like real DAOs that feels like a real thing and established, like we have so far to go to even like really get the game started.
Yeah. So when it comes to at least what I've seen with DAOs, having your funds in a centralized entity that's controlled just doesn't work. You have to have them in a multi-sig where the DAO has control, or at least has some voting power to stop those funds from being dished out, right? If Aragon had their funds, it's ETH, right? So it's already on chain, but the control of that ETH is held by the centralized Aragon company project, whatever the entity is, and not by the actual token holders. And if the token holders actually had control of the treasury, we wouldn't be having this discussion. It'd probably be dissolved already.
It reminds me of what happened with Umami about a month ago.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. Well, the Umami thing was a little bit differently, right? Because still there was a group of multi-sig holders who had control. It wasn't like the DAO itself. It's almost a little bit dangerous to have like the DAO with full control. Most notably with Beanstalk, yes, who allowed for 50. Essentially, someone was able to like flash loan 50% of the tokens in. They passed a governance vote, and in the same block, were able to take like $5 or $6 million worth of treasury.
No, like way more, like 70.
70. Okay, yeah, 70.
Yeah, yeah, like ended the project basically.
Yeah, they had to relaunch.
I see the parallels with Umami too, but I see them much more in how like once the battle lines have been drawn, like people start defaulting real quick to things like lawyers and fiduciary responsibility and you're just like, we've been doing this for years and not once have I ever heard you talk about any of this stuff. Like,
Yeah. Exactly. Put everything on chain, like give governance to people and put in some controls to allow for like a 3-day cooldown or something. I don't know. There's got to be ways to allow for full on-chain control while not letting this sort of like fake DAO stuff comes in. I guess they're not really a DAO. It's a foundation, right? It's a foundation that has some on-chain supporters. I don't even know what to call them now.
It's really tough too. Have any of you like done like extensive on-chain multi-signature like management of funds?
Just like basically bought NFTs with friends.
It's actually gets like super complex, right? Like it's like one of those things where like you see all these DAOs that have like 4 of 8 or 4 of 9 multi-sigs, and you're like, it's a huge security risk. But then there's also like the security risk that comes when you add signers and they just ghost or disappear, and all of a sudden like the funds are stuck. So like actually architecting these strategies, even just for a simple multi-sig, is tough. Like doing a complete DAO with like decentralized voting is way tougher. And yeah, I think I don't know. I don't have anything more to say. I guess we should move on.
Yeah.
Sorry for Aragon.
We live, we learn. We live, we learn.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of fundraising, Pudgy Penguins has raised $9 million for IP brand expansion. So this is yet another NFT project, which is raising on the back of the brand to grow. So notably, before we've seen Yuga Labs raise several $100 million on the back of Bored Ape Yacht Club. I believe the Doodles, or what is it, am I saying that right? The thing with the rainbows coming out of the mouth, or whatever it is. That one raised, I believe, $30 million a couple of weeks back, and now Pudgy Penguins is going as well too. So, notably, Pudgy Penguins, we talked about them the other day. They had lost their spot to Milady's.
Yeah,
this is serious news. We promise people.
Yeah. I mean, I think the cool thing about Pudgy Penguins, and I'm not that deep in the community, or I'm not that deep in the NFT community. I am never even touched the Pudgy Penguin community, but I have heard that there was some like pretty intense drama in the community, and I think there was something about like maybe the original artist and the IP ownership and whatever, and so. As much as like we're kind of crapping all over like the state of decentralization and the state of like DAOs today, I think like the Pudgy Penguin story is like the flip side of that, which shows like just the resilience of a community to like make it through drama and like continue pushing and now get to a point where they're like raising money to grow in a bear market is pretty cool, and just goes to show that like crypto still does stuff special and different.
So just to recap for Pudgy Penguins, in July of 2022, they raked in over 45,000 ETH in sales on NFT marketplace OpenSea. It's about $140 million in today's Ether prices, right? And the founders who created Pudgy Penguins were just draining the treasury, and it was a really nasty thing. So the Pudgy Penguins holders got together and kicked out the founder, Cole Therium, when nothing happened, right? So he promised a game, a token, an educational book, etc., and delivered on nothing, and just took like 600 ETH and really did nothing. So they kicked him out, and then another investor by the name of Luca Schnetzler. Sorry. He bought the Pudgy Penguin rights for $2.5 million to build out the brand, and here we are. So now they're going towards an all-time high on their price floor last December, and now they're going to be pushing for books, toys, physical goods, and other things that bear the IP.
Yeah, it's cool stuff because NFTs have really suffered in this bear market. I don't know how much you all follow the NFT marketplace, but it's sort of like a lot of these projects are hitting all-time lows. Bored Apes are going for 45 ETH. Like 3 months ago, they were above 80. So with all the like NFT projects really suffering, it's kind of nice to see that they like a lot of these projects are proving resilient and surviving.
Yeah, we're just at this point where if you think back, maybe like 15 or even before pre-NFTs, right? Like all the big collection figures had like Pokemon or Yu-Gi-Oh or anything that was making that had like a big IP brand. They would probably do the same thing that Pudgy Penguins is doing today, where you raise funds initially through a NFT sale, and then you just push from there and start building out your like physical brand.
Also, by the way, I think that this story and the Aragon story are kind of related in a way, because it shows like how a community wants to affect the project and all kinds of stuff it can do. And if the community is strong enough, I think that crypto is definitely a platform in which a community does have a voice and can achieve some kind of power. And it's quite amazing to see that the Pudgy Penguins are so strong and going forward.
Because
for
like
such a long time.
because like what it brings to mind, right? I don't know if you guys have ever seen these, but these like Funko Pops are like pre-NFT collector's items, right? And if these were launched today, they would be NFTs. But they're not. They're like little like figurines that you can buy for like a few $50 or $100. I don't know. But you know, these sorts of things are like what's happening. We're just getting a shift in how brands are able to do their initial raises and gain market share and market to their customers. So yeah, I think we'll leave that one there.
No, again, congratulations to the Pudgy team.
Yeah.
Keep shipping.
Yeah.
Bullish for Viper NFTs like the llamas, which are going to be later today kicking off their public auctions. So I'm going to be watching that.
Just about an hour, a few hours, no?
Yeah. So we'll have a lot to talk about maybe tomorrow.
Well, I'm sure that maybe some of the people who are about to receive ETH from the Arbitrum DAO, who is planning to distribute 5,954 ETH from surplus transaction fees, might be using some of that to buy llamas.
That was so smooth. What a transition.
So this is I guess a rebate you could call from the Arbitrum Foundation to all users on Arbitrum One. They pay a fee when transacting on the network. And so this fee is split into two components: the L1 fee to pay the costs on Ethereum and the L2 fee to pay for costs on Arbitrum. So if there's any surplus L1 fees, so they budget for certain gas prices for L1s, and all of those fees plus the L2 fees accumulate to the DAO. And then anything that's excess, apparently they're going to pay back to their users.
It's so wild because Arbitrum already feels stupid cheap to use. So it's like, I don't even know how they have fees, but it adds up, doesn't it?
Well, you want to know what's even crazier is, so like based on the Ethereum roadmap, the L1 fees are going to be cut in like definitely 10x, probably 100x, if not more. And the first one is EIP 4844 proto dank sharding, and then which is like a 10x cost reduction, and then dank sharding increases that by 64.
Wow.
So like I think there's a lot of things to talk about in that, but basically like fees are going down on L2s, and it's just like for all of this like craziness of how unusable these systems are today, it's like there's such a clear roadmap to how this stuff works, and like just kind of need to bear with it.
Well, the news is quite positive for Arbitrum, who is up almost 6% on the news today after that came out. So congratulations to the DAO. They finally figured out how to monetize, and maybe this is the thing that pushes them up into the stratosphere over the next few months. We'll see. We don't have any narratives for 2023 yet, major ones. We have some budding ones like Arbitrum, Pearson.
Oh no, I think the narrative for 2023, I think that 2023 is going to be like Ethereum middleware. It's going to be like the layer like right outside the EVM that starts to make like Ethereum useful. And so I think like it starts with rollups, but then it's bridges, then it's like oracles, and it's like going to be this explosion of things that connect Ethereum to the real world. Well,
we're going to have middleware week.
Yeah.
At some point. Maybe in 2 weeks we can get a guest on every day to come talk about middleware.
Yeah.
So another big case has been finalized in that the Coinbase ex-manager, was sentenced to 2 years in prison for insider trading. So Ishan Wahi, a former Coinbase product manager, was sentenced to federal prison for the first insider trading case involving cryptocurrency. So this was actually pretty high profile. Apparently people were tracking all of the listings on Coinbase, and they noticed that there was front running occurring on pretty much every single listing during this time period. I believe 2 years ago, and it was they went in. The DOJ did an investigation. They found Mr. Wahi, and they found that he had been sharing confidential information with his brother Nikhil and their friend Samir about which assets would be listed on Coinbase. And using this information, they made $1.5 million by trading 55 digital assets ahead of the listing announcements between June 2021 and April 2022. So Nikhil pled guilty to wire fraud and was sentenced to 10 months in prison. Ramani is still at large. So Samir is still at large. And that's pretty crazy. So don't do that. Don't leak information.
Yeah. Well, I personally think about crime in general, from what we're seeing, that if you were doing like mediocre crimes, don't do it. Like you're going to get caught, that's your end. But if you're going for massive frauds for billions of dollars, then you'll probably be okay. So,
Well,
not legal advice. Not legal advice.
I'm not a lawyer here. I'm not a lawyer here, but I have listened to a few podcasts about this, and I've heard, maybe I'm wrong, and you guys can leave some comments, but insider trading is like notoriously hard to prosecute for, because
he wasn't prosecuted for insider trading.
Yes, he was.
No, he was prosecuted. He was convicted. Like it was for wire fraud.
No, that was for his buddy. Like, this was actually for insider trading. Yeah, so Ishan Wahi was convicted of insider trading, the first insider trading case involving cryptocurrency, and then the person he told, Nikhil Wahi, was convicted for wire fraud. So it's actually very hard to be convicted for insider trading because they have to show both intent and that you were like paid some way, right? That you profited some from that information, right? Because like, let's just say you have a briefcase full of information about non-material information about a stock that's going to be released, and you like leave it somewhere, and somebody opens up that briefcase and they see that non-material information, and then they trade on that. That in itself is not insider trading. But if you like take money from somebody and then give them that non-material information, that is insider trading. So I think it's hard to prove in those cases, and there's probably like direct payments that were made from his friends to him for that information, or he probably benefited. It's once they can show that you benefited from that info, then they can prosecute. So this is actually pretty interesting, and it's also interesting that they were not able to charge the OpenSea guy for, I forget his name, but they were not able to charge him with insider trading. They got him for wire fraud. So this is a landmark case. Don't do insider trading.
Unless, as DeFi advisor suggests, it's billions and billions and billions of dollars worth.
You have to do it. If you have to do insider trading, at least go for the jackpot.
Yeah, first of all, it is totally bananas that you would bother, like you would go take the risk of insider trading for $2 million like that. But I don't. We need to get a lawyer on here. I'm pretty sure he pled guilty to wire fraud.
Alex, come back. We need you.
Yeah, I mean, of course, like I'm.
Yeah, Nathaniel Chastain. Sorry, that's the insider. Crypto Worm tells us, or sorry, that was the OpenSea product manager. So, yeah, just don't do that. Don't do crimes. Just pay your taxes and be a good citizen. Yes. So we're gonna wrap up there. Today was an interesting one. We had 3 live streams yesterday, which was incredible. We had some great guests on. You should go listen to those. We had Chainlink God come on in and give all the information about BRC20s. And then we had Thicky Thought come on and talk about his Pepe analysis. Also a great conversation as well, too. So please, if you have not subscribed already, go to our YouTube, go to our Spotify, and go to the Twitter, all Leviathan News. You can find us there. And then give us a like, subscribe, download our stuff, and leave us some comments. Tell us how we're doing, And that is going to be it for today. We'll be back tomorrow when the tide returns. Did I get that right?
Sure.
Until the next tide.
The next tide.
Good. Whatever floats your boat.
There we go. All right. Today is May 10th, 2023. We'll be back tomorrow. on Thursday for another episode. See you later, guys.
Goodbye. Thanks.